so many things that God's trying to use in our lives, unfortunately, we use them for ourselves. We're like, oh, I'm deserving of that. Or, oh, that was a nugget from God. Thank you for the blessing. Where he's really going, no, I'm trying to give you something to point you in the direction I'm asking you to go. And, it's amazing how you look back on life now and you go, oh, man, he was using that moment. Oh, man, he was using that moment. Honestly, probably the reason I'm talking to you right now was that first moment in life that I had no clue at the time what it was. But as I began going, all right, God, you're asking more of me. It's amazing how he pointed me back to a moment that happened when I was 5 years old. It doesn't have to be like it was last week. It's amazing how these memories, I've been hitting the head a lot. I'll probably forget half the things we say in this. I'm joking, everybody. But when I was 5 years old, was that first moment for me. And then honestly, it shaped my why for why I'm sitting here and even talking on the phone with you right now. But I was 5 years old and I stand in front of the administration building with my dad. And this old beat up truck pulled up and this guy got out and he's smoking a cigarette and he throws it down. He stomps it out and he walks up and I got my arm wrapped around my dad's leg. He goes, you the man in charge? And my dad goes, man, I reckon. He said, I got a new girlfriend. She told me I got to pick. He said, it's either her or my boys. He said, so if it's all right with you, he said, I'm going to leave my 3 boys with you. And so out they got. And 11-year-old got out, said, no more fighting, no more getting beat up, no more going hungry. He said, this sounds pretty good to me. He said, I'm in. And he went inside, he started playing basketball with the other boys, and he went about life. Well, the 10-year-old got out, and he was like, I told y'all he was going to leave us. And he took off running. It took our social workers 3 hours to catch him and bring him back, let him know everything was going to be okay. And it was such a picture at the front end of just going, how different people respond to moments and how that is now. It's such a teaching thing now. But my moment, my why, got out next. And it was a 6-year-old little boy. And he got out and he realized what was going on. And he jumped up and he put his arms around his daddy's neck. He said, no, he said, you can't leave me the same way mama did. And I watched my dad reach around. He peeled the little boy's hands off and he pulled him into his chest. And the dad got in the truck and he drove off. They never saw him again until after they graduated high school. And little did I know that little boy was going to grow up to be my best friend. We're going to play baseball together. We're going to rodeo together. He was going to be in my wedding. And it's amazing how that moment, that at that point, all I thought was, man, I gained another friend, was going to be a moment. But it's amazing how God keeps using that same moment and that same vessel, because that same young man who is now a grown man called me about 5 years ago. And I was sitting in my office. He said, what you doing, man? I said, I'm sitting at the office. What do you mean? He said, I'm about to get married. I was like, wait, what? Like, we hadn't had this conversation, buddy. And I was like, well, man, tell me about her. So he goes on and telling me about this girl and how awesome that she is. And at the end of the conversation, he tells me something that it was a moment, but at the same point in time, it's a perfect picture of what God does in our ministry in so many different ways. It was just this incredible moment. He said, Brody, 27 years ago, he said, my dad pulled into a stranger's driveway. And he said, and I met this big, tall man that made me 4 promises that we still make to every single one of our kids, that we love you. We don't want anything in return. Just give us an opportunity to earn your love back. We'll never lie to you. And this is the one every kid remembers, because we follow that with, if we ever lie to you, we don't work here. We're fired on the spot. Doesn't matter who it is. So they're constantly on that one. But then we say, we'll stick with you until you're grown. And that's where we send our kids to college, and we have, a family reunion every year where 600 plus of our past residents and their families come back. We want to be a place for you to forever call home. But number 4 is there's boundaries. But at some point in time, those boundaries are going to give way to relationship, and they're not even going to matter, because what you had to do is going to become what you want to do. And he said, but I met this man. He made me these promises. And he said, but then I walked inside. He said, and I met my real mom. And he said, Mom Duke's going to sit at the front row of my wedding because she was my mom when she didn't have to be. He said, but then I met my real dad. And he said, he's going to stand next to me as my best man because he stood in the gap when he didn't have to. He said, but how cool is it at my lowest point, God was already preparing me for the life that I'm about to live. I said, what do you mean, man? He said, the girl I'm marrying has a 7-year-old daughter that I now get to be dad to. He said, how cool is it? At my lowest point, God already had this sovereign plan in place. He said, I know you're busy. He said, I got to run. And it's amazing how God uses these moments and these nuggets that you think were for one reason. And you think that they're pain, or you think that they're elation, or you think that, it's encouragement, or it might be a discouraging moment. It might be a peak. It might be a valley. But God's using these all throughout your life. And, I got too many moments that I can sit here and name you. But it's amazing how just that one young man, we've got to share 4, 5 different moments with that have helped shape both of our lives. And what's cool is before all this happened, maybe 6 weeks ago, he and his wife came in and said, we just wanted to tell you this, in person. I said, well, what is it? They're like, our little girl, who's now is 12, she looked at us and she goes, why do y'all pray different than me? And they started getting to have this conversation of this union with their father, and this conversation with the God that wants to have a relationship. Well, how do I have a relationship? And they got to walk through how to lead her to Christ. And they said, we just wanted to come and tell you in person. And you know what? It's amazing, those moments that we try to use for ourselves. God's really going, no, I'm trying to give you opportunity to where we can have this horizontal relationship, that you can earn a seat at a child's table that then all of a sudden is going to point to a vertical relationship with a Heavenly Father at some point in time. But you know what? It took him going and living that out and earning a seat at that table for him to point her to where that is. Now he's getting to shepherd her through this new spiritual journey that she's walking through.